So today we will be talking about 20 books that I want to read in 2020. Internet friends, my name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to see you. It's just gonna be kind of a cozy and fun video where I talk about all of the books on my library cart that I really want to get to this year. I've got myself a very big cup of coffee. I recommend that you do the same, but I'm gonna try really hard not to go too long on the descriptions of these books because there are 20 books that I'm gonna be talking about. So for this video specifically, I will be focusing on books that I own already, so books on my backlist, because one of my goals for the year is to get through a lot of my backlist titles on my TBR, and so that's really what I'm going to be focusing on today. However, if you're interested in knowing the books that I am anticipating, because I have a really long list of books that I really want to get to in the next year that are going to be new releases, let me know down in the comments and I can always make that as well. Okay, let's get started. So let's start first with YA, because there are quite a few YA titles on this list. The first book is actually a series, but I'm only counting it as one book, and that is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. And I have been really interested in this trilogy for years, but I have not picked it up. And then recently, one of my really great friends, Kat, gifted this to me as my Christmas gift, and now I really want to pick this up. So this is going to be a top priority in 2020. So I don't really know a ton about this series, but on the back it says, from master storyteller and National Book Award finalist Laini Taylor comes a sweeping and gorgeously written modern fantasy about a forbidden love, an ancient and epic battle, and hope for a world remade. That's all I know about the book. I'm going in pretty blind, but I really trust Kat's taste in literature, and this is one of her favorite series, so I will be picking this up immediately in 2020. Next is an author more so than a specific book by this author, and that is Anna Marie McLemore. Yes, I have bought multiple books from this author, not knowing if I'm actually gonna like them, but I have a feeling I'm going to. And the reason I think I'm going to like Anna Marie McLemore is because they write a very magical realism style and whimsical style for their books, and I'm extremely intrigued. Also, I feel like a lot of my tastes align with Kayla over at Books and Lala, and I know that Anna Marie McLemore is one of her favorite authors, so I'm gonna be reading Anna Marie McLemore this year, and I'm very excited. I have 3 books that I want to specifically read from Anna Marie McLemore, and that is Wild Beauty, When the Moon Was Ours, and The Weight of Feathers. And again, these are all magical realism. They're all supposed to be very beautiful and very well crafted, and I'm excited to read all 3. Continuing on with speculative and magical realism, I have here Dig, and this is by A.S. King, and this follows a lot of family dynamics. There is a lot of conversation about class and wealth and racism in this book, and it follows a family of potato farmers, essentially. All I know is that the grandparents don't want to give any of their money away to their children or their grandchildren, and it's kind of seeing the children's struggle with money, with growing up, with all of that stuff. I know that there are a lot of speculative elements in this book, and I'm very excited because I know that Kayla loves this. I also know that my friend Chan read this year and absolutely loved this as well, and so I trust both of their tastes, and I'm very excited to pick this up. Another speculative / magical realism book that I have is The Bone Gap, and this is by Laura Ruby, and I'm very excited to get to this. This is a book that I don't know a ton about. I know that it takes place in this random town where there are gaps, I think in a field, and if you fall into a gap, you fall into another world. I don't want to know anything else because as soon as I heard that premise, I just knew that I was going to connect to this book. And so I picked this up. I'm very excited. And actually one of my favorite booktubers who does not make content anymore, Molly from Molly Reads, loved this book. And so I kind of picked it up, I think, from her recommendation. And I'm very, very excited to read this year. Another magical realism book that I have here is The Astonishing Color of After. And this is by Emily X.R. Pan. This actually was in my 5-star predictions video that I made last summer. And I meant to get to it over the summer, but I just didn't get to it. I've heard that this is a very sad book, that it deals with suicide, grief, loss, healing, and a lot of family dynamics. This follows a girl named Lee whose mother commits suicide, and she is convinced that her mother has become this bird. And so she wants to travel and try to find this bird and therein by find her mother. And I know it's very, very sad. I've heard that the writing is beautiful and lyrical. I've heard mixed reviews. I know a lot of the people who I really feel like my tastes align with have loved this book, but I also know that a lot of people recently have not loved this book. So I'm interested to see kind of where my tastes align and how I feel about it. Next, I have a dystopian, which I really, really think sounds incredible, and that is The Grace Year, and this is by Kim Leggett, and I'm very, very excited about this. So this sounds like it's gonna actually have a lot of commentary on today's society and a lot of the social norms and things that we experience. I'm very excited to hear about the conversation and see how it kind of carries over to our everyday life. I think that this sounds really incredible. This takes place in a world similar to ours where the people believe that girls kind of experience this weird magic, I think when they're 16, where they have the ability to lure grown men to leave their wives, to drive boys crazy, and it's like their sexuality is kind of at a whole other plane and they can't control it. And so all of the women in this society, when they are of that grace year, which is either 15 or 16, go away. But the thing is, nobody knows where they go, nobody talks about it. So I think as the reader, you kind of follow along the women's journeys as to where these girls go when it is their grace year. I've heard a lot of things about this. I've heard some positive reviews, I've heard some negative reviews. I think that this sounds like a very strong piece of literature. I'm interested to see what kind of feminist undertones are woven throughout it. I hope I like it. I really don't know, but it's rare for me when I'm interested in picking up a dystopian, and this just sounds so fascinating and unique that I have to make it a priority. I'm very, very excited about it. So, gonna pick this up. Gonna pick that up. The next book that is huge on my top priorities list is Dress Codes for Small Towns, and this is by Courtney Stevens. And I'm very, very, very excited to read this. This is about a girl who is growing up in a small town, and I believe it's kind of her story of discovering her sexuality. And I don't know any more than that. I have seen my friend Chandler read it, and Chandler, she did a taste test for Kayla's books basically, and she read this and Chandler said that she cried and that she really, really connected to it and loved it. And I really trust Chan's taste, and I also really trust Kayla's taste. So this is a very, very high priority for me in 2020. I'm very excited to read it. Yeah, it sounds really remarkable. And I've also met Courtney Stevens. She's a really, really sweet person. She's an excellent speaker. I have her other books as well, but I have not read any of her works yet. So I'm excited to start with this one. And then the final YA book that I have here that I want to get to in 2020 is We Are the Ants, and this is by Sean David Hutchinson. And I'm very, very, very excited to read this. Don't know a lot about it. I've heard it's very tragic. I've heard it's kind of sad. So I'll have to make sure that I pick this up when I'm in the right headspace, I think, for it, but I'm very, very excited and intrigued. It's about a boy who is going through a breakup and I think isn't really connecting to anything around him. He's not connecting to school or friends or his family. And basically he is abducted by aliens, and the aliens say that the fate of the world is in your hands. And so humanity basically rests in this angsty, broken-hearted teenage boy's hands. I'm very excited. I feel like there's going to be a lot of commentary on humanity and persevering, and I'm excited to read it. I think it's going to be really cool. I know that some of my friends haven't loved this, but I'm hoping to love it. Next, let's go ahead and talk about middle grade, because I only have 3 that I really want to make sure that I get to no matter what this year from my backlist. So the first one is a magical realism one as well, and that is Hurricane Child. And this is by Karen Callender, who I believe goes by a different name now for their books. This is about a girl named Caroline Murphy, and she is really isolated in her school. She doesn't have any friends until a new girl comes. This is dealing with a lot of issues that she has with her mother, who I believe has abandoned her. It's about her exploring her feelings for this girl. Does she like her as a friend? Does she like her as more than a friend? It sounds really beautiful and heart-achingly sweet, and I think I'm really going to like it, so I have very high expectations for this book. Next is a book I really meant to read this Christmas, but I just didn't have any time, and that is North Child, and this is by Edith Pateau. And here's why I'm making this a priority, even though it's not like the Christmas season anymore. When I was talking about this book for like my recommendations and for my TBR, so many of you guys in the comments told me that this was your favorite book growing up, or that you loved this book, or that you read this and you thought that I would like it. And I love your comments. I love your comments so much. I always read them immediately. I don't always get to respond right away, but like I love your comments and I trust you guys, especially if you are somebody who has been watching me for a while. You know my taste. So the fact that so many of you said that I was going to like this and that it was your favorite book really makes me want to pick this up. So this is a huge priority as well. The girl in here is named Rose, and Rose is on this perilous journey to an enchanted castle on the back of a polar bear. And it's about her journey, it's about self-discovery and what her destiny is, and there's a lot of magic involved. And I'm so excited to read this really thick and beautiful middle grade, and it's also just gorgeous. So this is a huge priority in 2020. And then the last middle grade that I have is actually a series, and I only have the first 2 books. I want to see if I like them and connect to them before I add to the collection, and that is The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making, and this is by Catherine M. Valente. So this is her Fairyland series, and I'm very, very excited for it. I read about 30 pages of this book, but I never finished it. What I was reading, I was really loving though. So this is about a girl named September, and September feels very ordinary and very isolated in her world when one day she is whisked away to fairyland. And we all know that I love portal fantasies and the chosen one trope, so I immediately am very like drawn to this series and the premise that Catherine M. Valente has kind of crafted. But also I've heard that Catherine M. Valente's writing is stunning and beautiful, and that the world building and the way she writes everything is kind of half of the magic, which is one of my favorite ways to read a book is just by the language and the voice that the author kind of puts into the story and not just the plot, if that makes any sense. A great example of this is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. I feel like half of the magic really came just from the way Jandy Nelson was describing everything and not just the plot. So I think that it's going to be similar in the sense that I'm really going to connect to Catherine's writing. However, I don't know because I haven't read it. So I'm going to try to make my way through the series and hopefully I love it. Okay, so now we are on to adult books. The first adult book that I really want to make a priority is Middle Game. I really want to read this. I have this weird feeling, oh my gosh, matte covers. It looks dirty, hold on. One moment. Keeping matte covers looking like fresh is so hard. Anyways, okay, Middle Game. So I am convinced that I'm going to love this book because everybody who I really respect loves this book. On top of that, Shauna Maguire is one of my favorite authors. Her novella series, the Every Heart a Doorway series, is my all-time favorite adult series. I love it above everything else, although Jay Kristoff's Nevernight Chronicles are a very close second. And so I just really feel like I'm gonna connect to this, but I'm nervous because what if I don't love it? I don't know, she's like one of my favorite authors. What if I don't love it? Anyways, this is about two twins, Dodger and Roger, and apparently they have been made or created somehow by a man who is trying to create gods. And I don't know anything else about it. It's very vague. I've heard that this is dark and twisted and that the sibling dynamics in it are beautiful and that it has wonderful, rich writing, everything that I'm interested in. So I'm very excited to pick this up. That will probably be one of my first reads of 2020. The next book I have here is This Is How You Lose the Time War, Ignore the Makeup, by Max Gladstone and Amal El-Motar. And of course I picked this up from Kat's recommendation. Our tastes align so much and I trust her opinion with my whole heart on literature. She has not steered me wrong yet, and I don't think that she will be steering me wrong. And once she read this, she left me so many detailed messages explaining why she loved it and what the book is and why she thought that I should read it. So I'm very excited and very intrigued, and this will be one of the first books that I pick up. I don't know a lot about it. I know that it is a female enemies to lovers. I know that it is a battle between two different, I think, societies or worlds who are going back in time and trying to manipulate their timeline so that their society wins overall. These two, I guess, special agents sort of end up falling in love somehow. And I'm very excited. I don't know a lot about it, but I can't wait to go into it. I can't wait to fall in love with the characters. I have really high hopes. Next up is an author that I want to read more of rather than a book, and that is Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab. I read her City of Ghost series this last year for my Ghost Stories vlog, which was really, really fun, and I absolutely loved her middle grade voice. So I'm excited to read something in the adult category. So I've got here A Darker Shade of Magic, and then I also have here Vicious. I haven't read either of these, so if you have recommendations as to which series you loved more, please let me know down in the comments, and maybe that will help me as to which one I should start with. I don't know a lot about these. I know that this is kind of like a morally gray, character-focused stories about two people who are trying to become superheroes. And then I know that this one is about a man named Kel who has a cloak, and his cloak gives him the ability to travel to different Londons. And I think there are 3 or 4 different Londons, all with different, I guess, with different things happening in them. So they're like parallel universes. And that's all I know, so I'm very excited. Next is a book that was on a lot of people's TBRs in 2019, and that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I'm very excited to read this. I didn't have a ton of time to commit to this book last year around the time that it was released, but I really want to make it a priority in 2020. This follows a character named Alex Stern who is accepted to Yale University, and while she is there, she learns about all of these different secret societies at Yale. I think that there are some paranormal elements to this. I think that there are maybe some ghost things that are happening. I don't really know. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on this. I've heard a lot of people say it's their favorite book of the year. I've heard a lot of people say that they DNF'd it. I've heard a lot of people say that it's very extreme in the topics that it discusses and that the trigger warnings are very long, like there's a lot of trigger warnings. And then I've heard a lot of people say that it's not really dark for adult, and that Leigh Bardugo is getting a lot of these things because she was originally a YA author. So I don't know. Like, I know a lot of people are divided in general, but I want to read it and I'm excited about it, so it's on my list. Next up, I have a book that I've been talking about on my channel since I started my channel, which I am so embarrassed about. That is Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and I am so upset. Why haven't I read this? I think, here's the thing. I think at this point, I'm just terrified because I've had this on my shelves and I've hyped it up in so many videos and so many people love this. What if I read it and I hate it? But this is literary fiction. It is a mystery surrounding a book called Shadow of the Wind. There's a little boy who lives in Barcelona, Spain, and he is gifted Shadow of the Wind basically from his father. And I think specifically it's from his father's bookshop. And it's a story crafted for story lovers and for book lovers. And it's all about this main character's journey trying to track down other copies of The Shadow of the Wind. And he discovers that somebody is out there burning every single copy. And so he's trying to figure out who is doing that and why they're doing that. And he also has to guard his own copy because this is now his favorite book of all time. And it sounds fast-paced and wonderful. And you guys, please remind me to read this because this needs to be a priority. Like I need to read you. I'm sorry. Next up is a book that has also been on my list for a while, and that is The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly. I know that some of my friends have read this and think that I'm gonna really love this, so I'm going to make it a priority. It is an adult fantasy. It's supposed to be kind of twisted and really dark, and I'm into that. So it's about a little boy whose father remarries, and he is not connecting with his stepmother. They are not really friends, and he's really struggling with his grief in missing his mother because his mother has recently passed away. And he kind of escapes into this world that comes from the books that he loves. So it's kind of like there's a series of children's books that he loves reading, almost like Harry Potter, and he falls into this secret world of the books that he's been reading about. Except he thinks that the world is going to be charming and magical and whimsical, and it turns out it's just really scary with lots of monsters to battle. So we kind of see him delve into this very twisted world and try to navigate everything that's happening. I think there's supposed to be a lot of metaphors in here for what's going on in his real life, for his grief, and for his relationship with his stepmother. And I'm really excited to see how John Connolly presents this story. It sounds fantastic. Next up, I have Night Film, and this is by Marisha Pessl. I just am very intrigued by her as an author, and I want to read more of her work. I know that this is one of her most famous pieces of literature. A lot of people on BookTube really love this. A lot of people in general really love this. I have not read this. I've been avoiding this. The reason I've been avoiding this is because it sounds scary, but I want to read more scary books in 2020. I'm excited and ready and feeling a little brave for the minute anyways. So I don't know a ton about this. I know that it follows a reporter or maybe a homicide detective who is exploring the case of this girl who seemingly has committed suicide, but he doesn't believe that she really committed suicide, and it kind of leads him into this whole backstory of her father and this occult in Hollywood. I think her father was the director or creator of a lot of horror films, and it sounds like this really interesting combination of like occult activities with horror films. I can tell from the premise that this is gonna be good because it feels kind of almost a little bit like Special Topics in Calamity Physics, which I adored from her. So I'm very excited to pick this up. I don't know if I'm gonna save this for Halloween or if I'm just gonna dive right in. But this is cool too because it is a little bit of a mixed media, not samples, pictures from crime scenes, and it seems really exciting and I can't wait. Next is a book that I really think I'm gonna love and I have been avoiding because I am scared, because what if I don't love this one either? And that is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. So this follows a group of friends who are all trying to be actors, and they are all acting in different Shakespearean plays at this company that does Shakespeare plays. So apparently it opens up with one of them being released from jail, and they were imprisoned for the death of one of his friends. He was essentially like thought to have murdered him. And the detective who put him behind bars sits down and says, okay, so if you really didn't kill the person, what really happened? And it's that story. It's the story of how somebody died and somebody was murdered and who murdered them and all that other stuff. So I'm excited. It sounds really fast paced. It sounds really creepy. It sounds very Shakespearean. Just very, very excited to read it. So let's go. Next is a book that I haven't heard anybody talk about, but I'm adding it to this list because it sounds bomb.com and I'm very excited for it. So let's go. And that is A Cosmology of Monsters, and this is by Sean Hamill. I don't know anything about this other than it is a horror. And why am I picking up scary books in 2020? I don't know. But anyways, let's talk about it. This is about a family who all sees monsters and they all deal with it in different ways. I think one of the characters is going crazy from the illusions of monsters. One of them avoids it completely and pretends that they don't see it at all, and they have nervous breakdowns from it. And then there is the youngest character, Noah, who decides to embrace the monsters and talk to the monsters and try to befriend and understand the monsters. And I think that this is going to delve into some really serious and heavy topics like mental illness and suicide, and I don't know, I haven't really checked up on the triggers list, but from the flap, it sounds like it's going to be a really intense novel. So just prepare yourself for that. But it also sounds scary. We're talking about monsters. I don't know if this is going to be a light and fluffy Where the Wild Things Are take, but I doubt it because it is categorized as horror. So I don't know. I'm very excited though. It sounds really cool and super unique. And then the last book that I want to get to in 2020 from my backlist, no matter what, gotta read, is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I was supposed to have finished this last year, but I didn't and I failed. I'm sorry. I'm very excited to read this though. I think I got to like page 70 and that's it. So this will be one of the books that I'm actually reaching for in the very first month because I really, really want to read it and I have some free time before my classes start up again. This is about a guy named Zachary, and Zachary is a grad student when he finds this very mysterious book. And when he opens the book, he learns that one of the short stories in the book is actually his story from when he was a little boy, because when he was a little boy, he walked past this mysterious door and he thought that it was a portal to another world. But he didn't actually try to go through the door because he thought, what if it's not real? And he wanted to keep the magic alive. So we flash forward to adult Zachary, who reads this in a book and is like, holy shit, I'm in a book. And so he kind of tries to figure out, was this real? Like, was there really a door to lead to another world? And if that is real and he is in this book, what the hell does that mean? I've also heard that this is LGBTQ+, and I'm very excited for that. I'm excited to see who Zach's man is. So I can't wait to read this. I can't wait to see what Erin Morgenstern has in store for me. You know, The Night Circus was one of my very favorite books of all time, and I really trust her writing. She has a very lush and lyrical style to her writing, which I adore, and I have very high expectations for this book. Well, you guys, that is it for the 20 books that I want to read in 2020 from my backlist. I'm so excited. What are some books that you want to read this year? Please leave them down in the comments. Okay, guys, I think that's it for today. I love you so much. And until next time, book lovers, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book. And I will talk to you later. Bye.